Hello friends and welcome to the channel. My name is Ryan Abair and this is where I share my insights, and today I'm talking about consider the source. And I want to talk about the strange sprouting phenomena that the universe has going on. Ideas popping into your head, actions popping into your body, thoughts coming out of nowhere. This idea that life is just sprouting up. It's an interesting phenomenon, but requires a greater sense of awareness, which helps us free ourselves from the notion that we have any control over it. Stick around. It has taken me a long time to get comfortable with this spontaneous nature of the universe. But you can consider the source by going back into the stillness and recognizing how simple it is. The beginning of the universe started off as a very simple thing. Something came out of nothing. That's a simple way of looking at how nature sprouts. Life sprouted out of odds. The Big Bang began the expansion of the universe, and it seemed instantaneous. In an instance, it essentially opened its eyes. So we have this perception that before the universe began, nobody knows. Complete, unconscious, dark, nothing, abyss, void. Then the universe opened its eyes. And then one day, the universe will close its eyes. Lights out, lights on, lights out. And that's what it feels like when you have a thought. If you sit, you can even close your eyes. If you sit and just close your eyes, boop, most likely a thought or an image or a feeling will arise. And that's how everything is. It seems to come out of, like there's this curtain, and then thought, and the thought goes back in. And we have to consider that. If you back up to the place where memories are recalled, or where speech comes from, or where a thought comes from, it's important to consider that moment of this word, thought, or image appearing from the background, right? That's what it feels like. It feels like if you sit with yourself long enough and get quiet and observe the mind shut up. It's really important to observe the mind clear and clean, and then notice how on off. Most of us perhaps maybe have not considered the source of that. Like, okay, what's the big deal about this curtain or this veil or this emptiness out of which things just kind of come in? Well, you begin to realize that you don't have control over it. That's one thing. It's really good to know that things are popping into your head. Actions are popping into your head, like farts and hiccups and eye blinks and movement of all kinds are an arising just constantly. And I'm doing it right now. I don't know what I'm going to say. I have no clue. The words, there's like this, if you observe how freely the words come out of your mouth when you're having a conversation, are they prefabricated somewhere? That's what I want to know. Because it's one thing to think about this vacuity or this stillness, and then to recognize that from the stillness there comes motion, or from the background there comes a foreground. I get that. But in a hypersense of awareness, you really do have foreground and background arising together. And I call that the, capital T, the ground. And you have to think of it like a battery. And I've used this analogy a lot, but I think it really is helpful. Every battery has a ground wire. And the ground is literally connected to the earth. It's interesting how we ground electricity like that, as so the circuits won't get overloaded in a lightning strike or something. And people who are struggling, like I've talked about this before, if you are one of these people that vacillates, struggles with decisions, like, oh, I don't know if I should do this, or I get it. You're not grounded yet. You are perhaps fluttering, you're vibrating too fast, you're moving too fast between positive and negative. You're just kind of stuck on one side of the terminal. You haven't really understood the ground, capital T, capital G, which sort of is away from the battery, has nothing to do with the two terminals. Because the ground is what produces the foreground and the background. It's responsible for all of it. Where you're no longer sort of on the extremities of polarity anymore, but you understand this midpoint. That a lot of people haven't figured out yet. They're still not quite understanding that positive and negative are not enemies. Positive and negative complete the circuit and create a wonderful zing. But the world has not come to the ground yet. They're still caught up in winning and losing and being right and being wrong, that sort of thing. They are caught up in a win-lose universe. But the art of being grounded considers the source at first. You start thinking, okay, this is interesting. Thoughts come in. Thoughts go back. Things seem to be arising in my consciousness. Until you begin to realize you're responsible for all of it, even the rise of consciousness itself. Not only are the things in consciousness, or the things in your awareness, or the things in your mind, or the concepts in your mind, not only that, that's not the only thing that's arising. You're creating the foreground and the background at the same time. And life does this beautiful thing for you. And this arises too. Awakening to your awakening, or awakening to your awareness. This also sprouts. That's what's so awesome about it. You're not doing anything. Even your awareness, your hyper-awareness of this fluttering back and forth, positive, negative, good, bad, good, bad. It's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. That's what it feels like. It just feels like you're no longer tugged and pulled and afraid. You almost feel as though you've escaped the trap of the physical parts of life, the tug. You're more grounded because you've considered the source. It's first you must consider the stillness out of which all things come. Right? Let's first of all consider silence and noise. Let's say silence and noise are this wonderful background-foreground relationship. Well, we think, okay, noise comes out of silence. No. Silence and noise go together. Those two things arise together in Taoism. Noise and silence are synonymous. So there's this grounding where you begin to see the duality of everything. Even spiritual teaching is dualistic. So-called spiritual teaching is just dualistic. And you never, even at these higher levels of awareness that I'm claiming that I have, I don't feel alone. That's so weird. In my hours of solitude, I don't feel alone. I don't feel by myself. So this sense of self and other is just always with you. And it just changes, and you learn how to parent yourself. You learn that you are parent and child, male and female, form and formless. Those two things arise from the ground of all being, the ground wire. You get out of the battery game. The fluctuation of being struggling with all your shit and all your life and all blah, blah, blah. You get out of that. You've been beaten back and forth in this large warble. And your head is just spinning, and then all of a sudden, you spend time in the silence. You're drawn to it. You're called to it. It arises. Awakening arises. What's born? What's born is this beautiful relationship between self and other as one. This wonderful feeling that you belong, and that you're included, and that you are led by your highest self, aligned with your humanhood. You're being parented, guided, uplifted, whatever the case may be, expanded towards your divinity, towards your reality, towards the ground. Now you feel like you're on the ground. And that ground is something called faith. It's I don't know how to explain that. I use the battery analogy. I use the pendulum analogy. I use the background foreground analogy. I use the alienation analogy. All those are concepts for what I can't explain. A ground out of which foreground and background come. See, your thoughts come out of nowhere. That's considering the source. But nowhere and somewhere are together. Duality seems to arise together out of knowing. It's like you can decide, but do you decide to decide? To decide? That's weird. When it starts to back up, it loses itself. Disappears. It's great, and that disappearing frees you, and you just feel so grounded. I'm out of the battery game, the terminal, the terms, the conclusions, the questions, and the answers. You can get out of that. And consider the source of, you'll be drawn to it. Stillness. It's raining here today, and I wish you could just sit here with me and would listen to the rain together. You'd learn more from that than my lips flapping. But you're being drawn to it anyway. Just consider it. Consider the source. The ground. It's beautiful. And so are you. You're that beauty. You're that source. You're out of the terminal game. You're gone. And you're free. My name is Ryan Aber. I hope you enjoyed these insights today. Please check out my blog when you have a moment. Sending much love and healing your way. We'll see you next time.